So this is very much something you are going to use every day in the salon, or at least every time you have a men's long haircut. And I can definitely see how this could be taken in a few different ways based on different densities of hair and texture of hair. I speak a lot into creating more texture and creating more movement versus actually strengthening the ends for somebody that has finer textured hair. So you can really kind of mold this and shape it around what your client's specific hair needs are. A square tends to be more of a masculine shape when it's cut square, meaning you're maintaining the corners where the corners are at in your section. So it's just a really great guide to show you when you're working the sides and then when you're working through the back. So the reason I section this off through the top, even though it almost essentially, you would almost think that it's like a long layered look. It is a long layered look, but the reason being is that we want to focus some of the layers actually down here through his hair in the bottom rather than just sitting on top like a woman's haircut. I want to achieve that razory texture through the bottom here, and that 45-degree angle that builds up a little bit of weight and shows off some of that like feathery, razory texture through the ends is actually really, really important. So I'm separating off the top so that way we can kind of layer that after the fact, but it has something that looks a little bit different down here to sit on top of. Whereas typically in a woman's haircut, they're doing less layers underneath, maintaining the thickness and adding like volume in the crown and pretty like flicky layers through the top. So we're gonna start here through the side and just, I'm gonna start elevating his hair. I damped it down slightly, but I kept the dryness of at the roots so that his natural growth pattern can really kind of showcase itself as I'm working through. So I'm going to keep my elevation a little bit lower and at a 45-degree angle so that but because I really want to see that kind of razory texture through there and I want to be able to almost mimic like what a razor would do, I'm going to come from behind and cut from short to long, short to long, short to long. So we're maintaining length through here, but I know that this is going to be shorter than what the lengths of his hair is going to be. So it's going to start the layers here, but I'm kind of focusing where his hair is going to hit here on his collarbone. So his hair is going to be longer, but this is kind of the first part of his face frame. So when you're creating a rounder shape, you're directing it forward. But I'm gonna slowly, my round shape, maintaining length through the sides, is going to become a square shape. Using the front as my guide, pulling it straight out towards me, and over directing just into my previous, creating a square layer, but holding it, pulling it out towards me, but holding it at a 45. So taking that vertical section, taking some from my previous section, and I want to show you the cutting angle. So I'm pulling it straight out, right? But at a 45. So by dropping this elevation, I'm going to be building up weight, but also kind of creating that layers and the kind of like piecey featheriness that I want here. So straight out, dropping my hand down at a 45 degree. And I'm holding my hand, so I'm standing right in front of my section, holding my hand towards me with my thumb pointed backwards, standing in front. I'm gonna come in, this area is a little bit thicker right here towards the ends of the hair, and I really want it to have. And then just section it straight down, and you can see how it already has this like zigzagged razored effect through here, and you can just encourage it a little bit more. Just kind of working that length until I feel satisfied, knowing that his hair is gonna bounce up because he has a little bit of that natural curl. And I'm just gonna work my way through, and I'll show you what we do in the back. All right, so now I'm just gonna take the entire section, so the entire square, over direct it straight up And this is just gonna add a little bit of extra texture to the very top layer. Broken line, right? Nothing's gonna be really perfect. We want this to look super organic, but it's a line nonetheless. And we can see where those layers are gonna start right here. My center parting and then pulling it out and at a 45 again. So from the side, gonna pull this straight out at a 45 to make sure we're not, if you're combing too much this way, you're gonna automatically gather the hair and it's gonna be over directed too far this way. So what you wanna do on the top part that's gonna be different from a woman's haircut is there are different areas that you kind of want to focus on. So I'm thinking I want this top piece so that it doesn't look like a bob to kind of fall just, so I'm taking into consideration this under part, looking at this, using it as a guide, and kind of visually saying I want this to fall here. So I'm actually gonna go from behind and create a bit of a short to long moving forward to create some separation between that piece that falls in the front and his back. So when you move their head towards you and then you hold it at the same space, what you're doing is you're actually elevating that a little bit more and a little bit more, letting the guide drop out from underneath, going from short to long, cutting it where it lives, standing in the, I'm gonna do the same thing on the opposite side with that perimeter, and then we'll layer through the top of that fringe section. So again, just reiterating, the parting will look like this. So you'll have, go ahead and look down, a triangle kind of left out and then up for me. Going from short to long, using those layers from the underneath as a visual guide of where I want that short piece to start. And I'm opening and closing my scissors, opening and closing my scissors, adding a little bit of a drag just to get that kind of razory textured effect. That's perfect. And then that gives me some natural elevation, which will naturally layer this part because it'll be elevated a little bit higher, but I don't have to change my body position or the way that I'm cutting this section. I can go straight in. It doesn't look like a pretty like feathered fringe because you have that separation behind in the back right there. So I'm just going to elevate everything straight up because most of the hair is cut, but you can't really tell that it is like a specific type of layer, right? That it's sitting on top and it's like layered in a specific way. And a bit from the underneath, just so I can visually see where that layer is. I'm gonna over direct down and actually cut it just slightly from short to long, longer than what's underneath. Now this is gonna feel like a little bit of a theme here because this is almost exactly like the fringe section where I'm going to ask him to tilt his head towards me. So as he leans his head and I take one more horizontal section and a little bit from the underneath, it is going to slightly layer this part up top. And I'm gonna over direct and I'm gonna like kind of just draw my fingers past where the underneath guide is. Coming from the back, cutting forward, creating lots and lots of texture, shorter to longer, and as I drag my scissors towards the end, establish length. I'm moving my fingers kind of just out of the way and visually seeing where that line is being established. So now there's one more section through the top, and this is totally, I think this is a really fun kind of fluid haircut. There is going to be a little bit of extra hair here through the back. So I just want to make sure that I can cross-check deeper chunks, especially with his hair texture. His hair texture has a little bit more density to it, so I can really go in and carve out. But if your client has a little bit finer hair and you feel like you want to strengthen it more, then I would think that it would be a great option just to go in and point cut and strengthen those bits and that texture in. I grab that small little bit and point cut away any unwanted, like just wispy pieces. Because when you are working really textured, there can be like one wisp or two where you're like, oh, make sure I get that guy. Now I'm gonna throw a little bit of grease in his hair and just to de-poof. So I can actually go in pretty liberally and put quite a bit of it. And I think throughout the day, his hair will just kind of slowly, naturally, the curl will just absorb it away until it's like dry. Boom. Cool. What do you think?
I like it a lot.
Do you feel like you still? Yeah? You don't feel like, who is this guy? That's perfect. That means that it's like right.